Hello, Marky Dragon, also known as Marcus Eikenberry in real life, and I got Billy here and Blixtev.
Howdy.
What's up?
We are going to talk about something very near and dear to my heart, crafting. And so now, Billy, you're working on crafting stuff, and oh, by the way, I got to mention, we're filming this in the dark, so if it's a little grainy, you know,
Yeah, hopefully
devs
the
melt
pop.
in the sun.
Yeah,
So
keep it dark.
I, was
Cave
gonna say,
trolls.
I hope you don't see me, but hopefully you can see the screens.
yeah. So I think it should be good. Now, crafting.
Crafting.
And so you were mentioning that there's a very important part of the economy.
Oh yeah.
And
Well, what we're gonna walk through here in just a second. So what I'm working on right now is I've been prototyping in Illustrator and other kind of like static screens, kind of like what the look and feel and what the actual steps through crafting are going to be. And now I'm actually inside of our engine building the functional pieces. So I'll walk you through that right now.
And one other thing I want to mention real quick here is that this is all early development, very subject to change. So don't take this video as absolute gospel.
Oh, you'll see here in just a second, we have like placeholder effects and just things. Well, what we're trying to do right now, I think the most important thing is to make sure we have all the steps covered, but not just that. What we're really trying to build with crafting, because it's something that is very methodical and takes a lot of, I guess, there's a lot of steps to it. We want to build anticipation. There's really exciting moments. There's a lot of randomness that can happen. And so some really cool, surprising things could happen. So what we're doing is not just putting the screens together, but also working on the timing of events. And you'll see here. So like, pretend like this is a very, very dense crafting wheel that requires 10 ingredients. So let's say I will have just applied my materials into each one of these slots. And so here's a more full inventory here. So I've just done that. I'm ready to go. I hit the combine button. Something special is going to happen, and then we're going to find out whether or not we actually succeeded at crafting, because you can totally whiff, right?
Well, it's the quality level. Did I just get a purple? Did I get a blue? Did I get a green? So at this moment, you will know what the base result of the item is right out of the box.
Yeah. So Greg behind us is actually he's in the process of making really nice special particle effects for this particular bit. But what will happen is, as you combine it, you see how there's like a little flash. Like at that moment, you don't know, what the item.
This is the wheel pull. This is the pull on the slot machine.
This is the initial pull, because there's more pulls coming.
It's a series of I would say, I don't want to say slot-like events because I think it's deeper than that, but like it's a series of I guess opportunities for cool random special things to happen. And so we want to build anticipation for those moments. So
It's also, it's not just totally random. Go back to what you said. It's based on your crafting skill. So there is a die roll based against your skill.
Sure.
It's based on the quality of the resources you used. So the higher quality resources you use in the recipe, the more higher end the outcome is going to be skewed. So it is somewhat random, but there is a lot of stuff you can do to mitigate it towards where you want
I'd
to
say
go.
random in terms of RNG, but you then get to set like the constraints within.
Sure.
So in that moment where that thing is flashing here, right at the end, you'll get the color of
Correct.
what it is. So you'll know right off the bat
Oh,
whether
okay.
this thing is weak or
So
whether it's strong.
that flash is going to be
Right.
gold or purple or
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, very
or
much so.
whatever
So-
the awesome color is.
So right off the bat, you kind of know, what your starting base level item is going to be, whether it's, special out of the gate, or whether it's kind of, cheap and maybe not worth your time going forward. And at this point, this is where you get your initial results of the craft, right? So you get to see your stats and stuff. At this point, if you're a hardcore crafter and you didn't get what you were really looking for, you could just abort completely.
You just bail out.
Well,
You're
no,
like,
wait. So no resources taken?
No, the resources have spent.
Oh, okay. Well,
You may have produced a substandard thing. So if you produce something that you think you can't sell, right, in a competitive player economy, you might just be done with it at this phase and go right
do
back
you
and
recoup any of the resources or anything?
you're flushing it. You're flushing the whole thing.
It's almost just like cutting your losses so you don't waste time going through the rest of the phases, because even at the end
because
of it,
you were going to delete it anyway because it didn't make the cut.
Correct, because if you had to compare
Is
it
there
to
no
another
free
game,
box for the new players?
well, some people can do that. And in Galaxies, that happened a lot. Was your rejects, your factory rejects, would go to newbies or whatever. But we're not grinding endlessly these things because we don't have this level up system where you have to make 1,000 of this thing. Right? You're always going for quality. You're always going for something people can use. I don't have to make 1,000 of these things to level up a skill. That's just happening over time.
That all being said, I mean, like, abort's just an option. We're not like pushing people towards that. I mean, it's
convenience.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get deeper in, you'll understand a little more.
I can see that. I have some games where I've got a bunch of extra product, and I'm like, do I? But that I can break it back down into at least reclaim something.
So what you could do is basically you could just rush through the rest of these screens, get your thing at the end, and then salvage it, if that's what you want. Like we do have salvaging of items that then, it's lossy, but you will get something on the back end.
Well, so wouldn't you do that?
This
instead?
is just like, no, I just want to be done with this. This is so terrible. I want to get out of this screen and not feel trapped.
My OCD is kicking off.
We're just flushing the whole thing.
Yeah, waste, man. Those pixels, you hear them scream when they flush.
I didn't get a chance. No. So let's say you like what you got, and you want to keep
Rename that pixel scream.
What I want to do is like maybe make that like super tiny and like over here, just so that people don't be like, what? Anyways, so you see here we're on page 1 of a multi-step process, and so the next screen is actually where we think people who are really serious about their gear are going to spend a lot of time. So let's move on to the next screen. And the next screen is our experimentation screen. And this is where, let's pretend like each one of these like placeholder stat names or whatever. These, what's a couple examples of things that
you'll be able to experiment on is like quality, durability. Quality will inadvertently go into either min-max damage or something like that, because every piece of equipment's going to be different. Right, swords you're going to want damage ranges, you're going to want armor values on equipment, so it's going to be different based on what you're crafting. The thing is you're going to have a pool of points that you can choose where you spend them up there, and then you would spend points, and then you would run an experiment on it.
So right now, these little dots means that you actually can't spend points there, but what you would typically see is if you had an axis that you could apply experiment points to, you'd get a couple of like, hey, here are available slots that could hold some of the points that we've given you.
So this is like I can build it toward the specs that I'm trying to achieve.
Correct. You're trying to customize it and skew it even more.
So let's say I had a pool, like right now I've mocked it up to where maybe we give you a maximum of 15 total points. That's subject to change. We might give you, it's
arbitrary. It might be
at
10,
this point.
it might be whatever.
Let's pretend I have a handful of points up here and I had these 3 available slots that I could apply these points to. So I've just clicked this open spot and now it's shown me that I have prepped a point. I haven't spent it yet, right? So let's do this a few times. All right, so I have prepped a few points, and so the next step, right, Blair, is to actually run the experiment.
Correct.
What happens when you run the experiment?
So when you run the experiment, again, you're spending the points, and you have a possibility of successes. You can have an amazing success, you can have a great success, you can just have a standard success, or you can have a critical failure. All of those things will influence how much gain you get off of that experimentation. Now, you can either do it 1 point at a time, put a point up there, run an experiment, put a point up there, run an experiment, but you're taking a lot of risk because essentially you're saying, roll the dice, roll the dice, roll the dice. Or you can put all the points up there, but what that's going to do is we have this thing called volatility, and it's going to raise the riskiness of it. So which way do you want to go?
I want the epic weapon. Give me the risk.
So we keep
I'm all in,
risking
buddy.
it. And once we run the experiment, if we are successful with our experiment on those points, then those points are now committed to the location that we've given them. And so when Blair was talking about having like an epic success or something, what might happen is because you were that successful, we've actually opened up additional available slots.
Points that you couldn't spend there before.
Yeah.
So now I can get extra risk on my experiment.
Correct. You can keep
I've got bonus risk.
You want to let it ride? Let it ride.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All in again. Double or nothing.
All in again.
Yep. So that's the game. That's the push and pull in this screen. And so I think people that are going to be like really serious about creating not just valuable gear but very unique gear for the economy, like this is where they're going to spend a lot of time per item. And so let's say, okay, we're done, we're happy, we spent all our points, or we've decided I don't want to spend any more points because what I have right now is good enough and I don't want to risk it any further.
And we're only halfway through the process, by the way.
Right, we're at page 2. So this also only happens at a crafting station in a town. So right now that's where our crafting stations are. So when you're just crafting in the open world, you just skip the experimentation.
Yeah.
You actually have to go to a safe spot where you have a crafting station.
That's what incentivizes people to go to station for station crafting. So personal crafting, instead of being a 4-step process, is a 3-step process. You got your initial, you got the screen we're about to get to is the cosmetic customization, and then you have basically a confirm/await screen, because once you built the item, you actually have to wait for it to finish building before you can take it for yourself. So let's move on to the next screen, which is this is our kind of like cosmetic customization screen. So depending on what the item is, you might have some or no kind of cosmetic options, but every item you will be able to custom name. So custom sword of awesome. That's my item name. For this particular mock-up, I have a couple things that we can modify about this sword.
Could I, if I wanted to, name it like sword of guinea pig squeal?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
As long as it passes
checking.
the standard filter
checking.
options, swear words, things like that. What you will see here, though, is you're not seeing it in the UI. You will see the maker mark. So if Marky was making this, it would say Marky made this thing. It would also say it's a variant of one-handed sword. So everybody knows that it is a one-handed sword, despite the fact that you named it whatever. So that way you can't fool people by trying to pass off goods for other goods. So you always know that this is a variant of a thing. But if you wanted to call it Marky's Sword Mark II, we saw this in Galaxies a lot. When the master crafters would make specific blueprint runs of a series, they would call it their Mark II weapons, their Mark III weapons. So you can come up with whatever schematic or design you want, essentially, for your goods, which is great.
And so,
Everybody will always be better than me, so they won't care if it's Mark II or Mark III.
So right here, what you're getting is normally in our 2D icons, it's a single graphic that doesn't always represent all the cosmetic updates. So in this particular screen, you're getting a live 3D preview of the item itself, and then you'd be able to modify certain shapes. If we had multiple blade styles or blades that had like different engravings in them and things, like you'd be able to switch blades out, and then you'd be able to switch tints. And there is a possibility that your choices might require additional resources like dyes, and in which case you would then drag that item back into this slot to confirm that particular decision. And once you're done,
Let's talk about the two options there, because
Yeah,
those
go
are the
for it.
interesting ones.
Oh,
So-
make blueprint.
Make blueprint. So let's say you made it through the experimentation phase and you got awesomes across the board. You got the perfect item. So what you're going to want to do is, instead of making that item of which you can make one, what you want to do is make a blueprint. Now with the blueprint, we don't have those screens ready yet, but you essentially have a factory, which is one of your thralls working for you in the crafting stations, and he will take that blueprint, and as long as you have identical components that you use to make that sword, you can make n number of swords that's on the blueprint. The blueprint, of course, will have a certain number of charges, because we don't want to have unlimited, but that will also be gated by you need factory identical subcomponents to use in the blueprint.
And so like in like EVE Online, for example, which
Yep.
uses a lot of blueprint type stuff.
Correct.
And there's copies and there's originals.
There's BPOs,
And
I know the whole system.
Okay, so are the number of runs affected by a skill that I have as the person making this, or how does that?
Ultimately, so it's more similar to Galaxies. So in Galaxies, what the ultimate gate on a blueprint was every subcomponent you needed had a serial number on it. And when you made a blueprint that used components that had serial numbers, it required that exact serial number as that component. So you couldn't substitute out sword hilts in our case for different sword hilts that don't have that serial number. So ultimately,
Interesting. So you have to have all the resources ahead of time, and then it makes the blueprint.
correct.
Ooh,
So you have to know.
shit! That's gonna make me work.
Yeah, that's the whole crafting game.
This is gonna make me think about this.
I know, that's the
thing
whole
ahead
crafting
of
game.
time.
So in Galaxies, what we saw was that was time consuming, and that was a whole play style. So the crafters really concentrated on making factory runs of lots of subcomponents, so then they could go into it knowing, hey, I'm going to make a factory run of swords this week. So they would come in here and they'd experiment for the very best one they could get, and with all the materials left over, they would make a factory run of it.
Can I take pre-orders?
You,
they take pre-orders.
You're running the shop.
Like you just have wholesalers of like
Right.
materials and stuff.
and this is why we take crafting so seriously. I mean, it is a play style. It's just as valid as combat. And the crafters may not have enough time to go harvest stuff or fight stuff.
Well, and all
they're
the-
making stuff.
All the best gear in the game is going to be player made. Like, you know what I mean? No,
Well, all the gear in the game.
that's right.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
The NPCs aren't dropping gear; they're dropping additives
resources.
for super specialized. Now, let's say that you found an additive out in the field, the Winter's Rose, and you wanted to make a super special sword. You get one shot at that thing. You get one trip through the thing because you only have enough additives to attempt one sword.
And then that one will not be for sale. It'll be mine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So again, it's all how the crafter wants to run their shop, how they're producing all these goods for the economy, and we've given them a lot of depth in this system, and then they will manage their factories.
Right.
Wow.
So once you're happy, you then just confirm, you know, a blueprint or item, and then you basically go to your wait state, and then when it's done,
Now, what do you mean by wait state? It doesn't happen automatically, or do we have production time, or what?
On a solo item, we're thinking there's a production time, but also there's a difference between, again, personal and station crafting, right? You just went through what we assumed would be station crafting.
Right.
So that station would be consumed now. The factory is a different thing. The factory is what's running your, you put your blueprints in, and the thrall is actually banging out.
Because I think that, you know, if I craft something really epic, that it should take more time to produce, and if there's even stuff that, you know, takes a couple of weeks or whatever, I'd
I
be
have no
thinking
doubt
that-
the skill system will feed into that as well. It'll reduce time, whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, I just think that's one of the things that a lot of games miss, in my opinion, is they give more gratification too fast. I know that this is a balance, and I know you guys are the expert,
Right.
but as the player, I like it when it takes, you know, if I made 3 items and it's going to take 2 weeks each, so it's going to take 6 weeks to get all of them made, you know. I'm sporting the first one, and I'm like, you want to buy this? You know, 2 weeks,
Right.
it's yours, you know. And but it's just there's a I put time into it then,
Absolutely.
too, which is
oh yeah, but it
Yeah,
adds
this
value.
isn't a
Something I'm very
45-second
proud
bar that you're watching progress,
So,
right?
so that's why I say we build in a little bit of candy during the process so that you get that instant gratification, but then that doesn't get in the way of the long-term value that we need to put into this, right?
Oh, hey, look, you brought up the thrall mass production,
Here's
early prototypes.
Here's an early mock-up of what this screen could look like. So at a station, you'd get a couple options. You can do just let's pop off a single crafted item, or let's go into like just, you know, a basic crafting flow. You got a station inventory, which lets you kind of check out, here's where I can kind of put stuff for my Thrall 4 mass production. So all the materials that are part of a blueprint, I would just kind of dump into this inventory, and then that way I can just step away and the Thrall just hammers out the items in mass. And then this is the mass production kind of window. You know, first have to set your Thrall, which is the guy banging these things out, and then you would set your blueprint, and then you get some feedback to let you know whether or not you had enough of the materials inside of the station inventory, and if so, then everything's good, and then you can kind of start production. And when something's in production, you basically get a little time for each number, each stock. You know, you'd see like, hey, this is going to be done in 2 days or 3 days or whatever. As soon as it's done, it goes into your station inventory to the outbound. So this is where you put stuff for mass production, and then this is where it pops out. So you'd get you can pick up your items, you know, incrementally, or you can just kind of wait for it to kind of stockpile.
And those are, right now, our early is days, right? The swords just don't click out. It takes days for these things to come out. But the Thrall is doing it for you, and he's consumed that factory slot, which means that you can't run subcomponents. You can only run one thing in the factories at a time.
Oh, interesting.
So you will either need to make deals in your guild, where Billy makes a series of components, you make some components, and then I'm making the swords, because we all don't have unlimited factories.
Or you have multiple accounts.
Oh.
Oh, what? Did I step on something there?
When there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously, and there's nothing we can do to stop that, but that's
Well, but-
really not what we're designing it for.
You know. Okay.
I'm hoping that you will come to me and be like, hey, Blair, I need a bunch of these things, or hey, Billy, I need a bunch of those things. I'll be like, here you go. But
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. So, and this is a group-based thing. I mean, we're not solo players aren't going to be as successful as a player that's working with their guild.
I mean, having friends and having people being able to do that, I mean, that's life, right? I mean, so it's how can we link up people who identify themselves as solo players to fill these key niches that every guild is going to need. They're going to need harvesters. They're going to need dedicated crafters. And they're going to need combatants, right? Which you don't see right now in Hunger Dome, which is just the combat sphere that we've been testing, which is great because our next big milestone is all about testing out the harvesting sphere as well as the crafting sphere of the game.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. And this is, so I don't do very good in PvP, but in market PvP,
Right.
yeah, I'm going to nail it.
Right, yeah,
So-
yeah, a lot of people think it's about fighting, but if you...
No,
no.
I am support.
Dude,
Right.
No, there's, I mean, what is it? You know, the three pillars are combat, politics, and wealth, right?
Power.
And so- power, right? So it's like this is the wealth. This is where people can like have an entirely different experience and never touch combat.
Well, this is the foundation for combat.
Yeah,
Right,
without
because gear
this-
is so important. If you don't have good stuff, right, you need to have gear.
Which makes someone who doesn't fight incredibly powerful because they hold the keys.
Yeah.
So.
Key
there you go.
holder.
And remember, this is early stuff. This
Yes.
is early stuff,
Yes.
and this is our first pass at it. This will be the we're going to start writing code around this now, messing with the math formulas, how things go to
So
make
when,
those
so when this
quality
video
levels.
is released, it might be something completely different.
Hopefully prettier.
Prettier.
Couple
yes.
couple more bells and whistles.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks, guys.
You're welcome.